Swimming's world governing body FINA has voted to ban the participation of transgender athletes in elite-level competition if they've undergone male puberty during its extraordinary General Congress meeting in Budapest. Under the decision, male to female athletes will be ineligible for elite women's competition if they have not completed their transition by the age of 12. FINA will also institute a committee to work on establishing a third open category for participation in future elite-level competitions. 71% of the 152 member countries voting ruled in favour of the decision. Representatives heard a report from the body's transgender task force, made up of leading figures in the world of medicine, law and sport, before voting.
It is my hope that young girls all around the world can continue to dream of becoming Olympic and world champions in a female category, prioritising the competitive cornerstone of fairness.
Joining us live now is four-time Olympic swimmer Emily Seebohm. Emily, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I should first of all start by asking what your reaction to this decision was.
I'm happy to finally see a reaction. I'm finally happy that we have a decision and we know where the sport's going and what we're going to be doing. And I'm really supportive of the open category that they're suggesting that they are going to bring into competition, because it gives a chance for everyone to be involved in our sport. I love my sport. I want to share it with everyone. So let's get everyone involved and let's just keep it fair.
Both football's governing body FIFA and World Athletics will decide whether or not to restrict the participation of transgender athletes by the end of the year. It comes after swimming's governing body FINA voted to ban transgender athletes from elite women's competition. World Athletics' current rules cap testosterone levels at 5 nanomoles per litre for transgender athletes in women's running events. The move has been condemned by trans rights groups. American synchronised swimmer has been rescued by her coach mid-event at the World Aquatics Championships. Anita Alvarez stopped breathing during her routine and sank to the bottom of the pool. Her coach dived in and pulled the 25-year-old to the surface. Her coach says the athlete is recovering and doing well. Actor Ben Stiller has been pictured in the Ukrainian city of Lviv a day after meeting refugee families in Poland. Mr. Stiller, who is a goodwill ambassador for the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees, spent time on the Poland-Ukraine border talking to families whose lives have been torn apart by war. He shared his experience on Instagram, where he informed his followers of his mission and encouraged them to ask questions and learn about the conflict. And inflation in the UK has reached a 40-year high, a 9.1% high for the month of May. Officials from the British Office for the National Statistics claim the uptick in the cost of living is partly due to the compounding effects of COVID, as well as increased pressure from the energy crisis caused by the Russia-Ukraine war. The Bank of England has released forecasts projecting inflation in the UK to reach highs of almost 11% by the end of next quarter. The US Supreme Court has struck down a New York gun law that places restrictions on carrying a concealed handgun outside the home. The state of New York issues public carry licenses only when the applicant demonstrates a special need for self-defence. The 6-3 decision stated the requirement violates the constitutional right to bear arms. New York Governor Kathy Hochul called the decision reckless and says she is prepared to call the legislature back into session to form a response.
If the federal government will not have sweeping laws to protect us, then our states and our governors have a moral responsibility to do what we can and have laws that protect our citizens because of what is going on, the insanity of the gun culture that has now possessed everyone all the way up to even to the Supreme Court.
President Joe Biden has said he is deeply disappointed by the court's decision. The ruling will allow challenges of similar open carry restrictions in other states. It could also hamper efforts to implement gun control measures such as those currently being considered by the US Senate. At least 1,000 people have been killed and 1,500 others have been injured after an earthquake struck eastern Afghanistan. The 6.1 magnitude quake struck at 1:30 in the morning near the Pakistan border. It's the deadliest quake to strike Afghanistan in 2 decades. The Taliban is pleading for aid, and the death toll is expected to rise as rescue crews travel to remote villages in the mountains. Australia has sent its condolences to the people of Afghanistan. The Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong tweeting the devastation in Afghanistan following the magnitude 6.1 quake is heartbreaking. Australia will work with partners to respond to the crisis. Chairman of the US Federal Reserve Jerome Powell has conceded that recession certainly a possibility for the country in an address to the US Congress overnight. Mr. Powell told American lawmakers heightened global tensions is making it harder to bring down inflation. Despite this, Mr. Powell says the bank is strongly committed to bringing it down and will do whatever it takes to do so. The head of the Fed Reserve also hinted further interest rate rises were almost a certainty. Mr. Powell believes the American economy is in a strong position to be able to cope with whatever rate hikes emerge. The New South Wales government offered the US Trade Commissioner job to a senior public servant before the role was then handed to John Barilaro. The former Deputy Premier created the role while he was Trade Minister, and his appointment did not receive Cabinet approval. There are reports Jenny West from the New South Wales Treasury was informed that she'd received the job by the then Premier Gladys Berejiklian. However, West was later told the offer had been rescinded before the role was then re-advertised and given to Mr. Barilaro. Who made the call to send John Barilaro to New York?
Well, I'm informed that it went through a proper process. That's what I expect for any government appointment, and that's what I've been told's happened here.
Do you support it?
Well, John Barilaro was a trade minister, so he's well qualified to be a trade commissioner. So, you know, if it's been through the proper process, then of course.
Someone else had the job, though, before it was rescinded. It was then re-advertised and then given to Barilaro. Is that enough to warrant an inquiry?
Look, I haven't seen those reports. What I do have been told, though, is that there has been a process that's been followed. That's appropriate for the appointment of any government jobs, and that's what I've been told has happened here.
Right. But on the face of it, I mean, there's a stench there, isn't there?
Well, I mean, there is a process. If that proper process has been followed, then that's appropriate. So, you know, what we're seeing here is an appointment that's been made. I've been informed that's been through that process.
The Liberal Party is said to be eyeing a return to politics for the former Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. Mr Frydenberg lost his seat of Kooyong to Teal independent Monique Ryan on a swing of over 9%. Since the loss, he's been inundated with private sector offers, including being approached to replace the outgoing AFL CEO, Gillan McLachlan. While some senior party members are urging the former Treasurer to have another tilt at Kooyong, others believe he would have a better chance in the neighbouring seat of Higgins, held by Labor's Michelle Ananda Rajah. Former Liberal member for Wentworth, Dave Sharma, has said the Liberal Party won't make it back into government unless it takes a stronger stance on climate change. Mr Sharma lost his seat to Teal independent Allegra Spender. Opposition leader Peter Dutton has said that he will oppose Labor's legislation for a 43% emissions reduction target. Some moderate Liberals are not ruling out crossing the floor on the issue. And Mr Sharma feels the Liberals need to differentiate themselves from the National Party in order to win back environmentally conscious inner-city seats, pointing to comments made by Senator Matt Canavan during the campaign.
I mean, when I think of what were the two biggest distractions, it was Matt Canavan saying net zero is dead, which derailed us undoubtedly because that's all we had to talk about for 4 or 5 days, and Catherine Deeves and Warringah, because then everyone was speaking about that. Now, I think you could argue both of those were self-inflicted.
Well, Australia's Energy Security Board is rejecting demands for fossil fuels to be cut from its draft capacity mechanism, saying it is essential that coal and gas is not emitted before replacement supply and storage is in place. Fossil fuel generators would still receive subsidies from the board as it looks to secure reliable supply for the nation's power grid. The ESB will give individual states and territories the power to opt in to preferred energy technologies and tweak the plan for its jurisdiction. Victoria is set to block coal and gas entirely despite warnings from the Board of Renewables drought in the state over winter months. The energy operator has flagged its unprecedented intervention into the market may soon be lifted, meaning the worst of the energy crisis could soon be behind us. Joining us live here in the studio now is the Deputy Liberal leader, Susan Lee. Susan, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. So do you expect it to be lifted tonight?
Well, I hope that we get back to something that is well away from the chaos of the last few days. But this is a huge problem for the government, and it's not one that was created since they arrived in power. everything that they talk about, all of those factors at play were there when they came into government with the plan. So it is down to them to fix this.
Right.
But look, the messaging, I mean, you know, power generators are sort of being told they're gaming the market by the Prime Minister. The industry minister's out this morning saying to gas producers, or appearing to issue veiled threats. Look, I'm sure he's picked up the phone, but these conversations shouldn't be happening through the media. They should be a constructive working relationship, and that relationship should be there already, and I'm not sure that it is.
First home buyers in New South Wales will be able to choose between paying the upfront cost of stamp duty or a small annual property tax payment, as revealed in the state budget. The Executive Chairman of Yellow Brick Road Home Loans, Mark Burris, joins us live now. Mark, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. So what's, on balance, what do you make of the policy?
It's pretty good policy in terms of borrowers, particularly first home buyers, who struggle to get the stamp duty. I mean, the stamp duty can be quite a large sum up front. But what you've got to remember is that the stamp duty that we pay up front, we pay on the purchase price, whereas the other tax, let's call it a land tax, for example, we pay on the unimproved value of the land, and we pay it annually. And it is 0.3% of the unimproved value of the land, plus $400. And you pay it every year until the day you sell. So if I did a few quick calculations, it seems to be much better off for people who are buying units, because you only have one lot of unimproved land, except you have a whole lot of unit loss on top of a unit block. Therefore, I think there's a bit of an arbitrage when it comes to apartment buying, and particularly for lower value properties, which is the first homeowner sort of environment.
Yeah. The British Navy will deploy the Royal Navy's newest and greenest ships into the Indo-Pacific region to re-establish a presence and combat China's increasing influence. Royal Navy First Sea Lord Ben Key says the UK is interested in returning to waters it once knew well. Interests of security and climate change are believed to be a priority for the UK in Asia and the South Pacific. Defence Minister Richard Marles has pledged to prioritise the purchase of nuclear-powered submarines in order to meet modern security threats in the region. The Deputy Prime Minister, has revealed he wants to close a 20-year gap between when AUKUS nuclear submarines were first promised by the coalition and their expected delivery in the 2040s. The government hasn't decided whether to purchase American or British-designed submarines, but insists a quick time frame is the priority. Defence Minister Richard Marles has met his Indian counterpart in New Delhi, vowing to strengthen security ties between Australia and India. China was a major discussion point as the largest trading partner and largest security concern for both countries. Richard Marles says Australia and India's strategic interests have never been more aligned. Both ministers welcomed increased joint military exercises and cooperation on defence technology. Mr Marles indicated he'd like to see Australia and India strike new agreements to share information and access each other's defence facilities. The Albanese government will provide 4,200 GPS trackers to the Sri Lankan authorities to monitor fishing boats that may be used by people smugglers to bring asylum seekers to Australia. The Home Affairs Minister announced the move after a visit to meet Sri Lankan authorities. The system will help fishermen confirm their catches were legitimately caught, while ensuring criminal syndicates did not use their boats. When the $5 million system is fully implemented, $50 million system I should say, vessels without trackers or ones that have been disabled will be penalised by the Sri Lankan government. Paul McCartney will break a record this weekend when he becomes the oldest solo headlining act at Britain's Glastonbury Music Festival. The former founding Beatle returns to the stage only a week after celebrating his 80th birthday. McCartney said the performance will be full of hits from across his career, spanning 6 decades.